Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Episode 2 of the Collective Podcast. Anthony Carter here. Have Trey Hopson in LA, North LA. Rodney Saucier in Long Beach. Michael Tillery in Philadelphia, PA. Bringing it back for one more week. You know, last week was the debut. Welcome back. This time it looks like we have our video fixed, so we'll have this on YouTube. Very exciting. And then for those of you listening on the DSPs, welcome back. Very exciting. Let's just run through the round table again pretty quickly. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, Mike, and then we'll pass it to Rodney and pass it to Trey, and then we'll get right into it.
Michael Tillery, sports writer, podcast, on a radio show host for about 17 years. Written for New York Times, Washington Post, ESPN, Slam, Sacramento Magazine. Worked with Chuck D, a Public Enemy. Just trying to do the good Lord's work.
Rod?
Oh, my bad. Rodney Saucier, sports addict. No writing, although I do dabble in writing fiction about family roles and stuff like that. No sports writing, but very opinionated. Sports official and finance guy.
Okay, cool. Trey?
Trey Hopson here. Person that loves sports, man. Play sports. Love watching sports. Love basketball, man. Follow basketball a lot. Follow boxing, as well as football, baseball. A little bit of everything I dabble into it. Yeah, man. Big family guy. Love sports. Love talking about it and, giving my opinions about different things. And, yeah, that's it, man. Excited. So excited to be back on here with you guys, man. Mizzo, this is for you, brother.
Oh, man, I was about to say, man, I love the shirt. Got to love that.
Wow. AC, Anthony Carter, Tony Carter, thank you. Haven't worn a lot of Dodger hats throughout the years. In fact, for the last 22 years, I've been a Red Sox fan. And I transitioned with Mookie Betts and David Price. So now, Dodgers. And so had to rep the LA hat. A little about me. I've been sports writing for 28 years. Always as a hobby, but something that's always been pretty important to me. I've written for a number of national publications, and I've written for a number of magazines. So it's been a good run. I met Mizzo through journalism, so we have that connection. And then 12 years ago, I got deeper into sports by becoming a sports official. So I'm a college football, college basketball, college lacrosse official. So I have that perspective to bring to the table also. And so again, thank you everybody for being here. Welcome back. And we'll just jump right in. Anybody can start talking. Free agency has begun in the NFL, and the most high profile, if not top, but most high profile free agent landed somewhere in Florida. That would be Tom Brady with the Buccaneers. So what do you guys think about the Buccaneers and picking up Brady and showing Jameis Winston the door?
They're gonna be a top team, man. They're gonna be a top team out there. They got a lot of nice pieces that go along with that team, and bringing somebody like Brady in is big. I'm an Eagles fan. However, I do like football, and you got to give AB that chance, man. Like, that's what people want to see. They want to see him and AB, Brady and AB go, you know, be on the same team and see what they could be. I mean, they had one game together, and it was one hell of a game when it was in Boston. And, you know, I want to see it. People make mistakes. I mean, has he done some knucklehead stuff that you probably shouldn't do? Yeah. But don't they all? You know what I mean? Give them a chance. I mean, with people doing their personal life, I don't well, I take that back. Some things you can't forgive, but don't take away from the man's talent. AB's still one of the top 5 receivers out there in football. Easy. And he has experience. He can bring you Super Bowls. He has all of that if he can be with the right person, you know, and I would like to see it. I think it could turn into something big as long as they don't beat the Eagles. Then that's, you know, it would be a beautiful thing. But I would like to see it, man. And, you know, the way that they're trying to keep AB out and keep him away from Brady and, you know, that whole thing, it's a bad situation. But I think one of the reasons Brady did go there is because he thought that he was going to have the power to get AB there. But being that I think it's like an offensive coach or something like that was, if I heard the story right, that he was in Pittsburgh and he was like, not on his watch because, you know, the bad blood that AB left with Pittsburgh and the relationship they had there. However, man, I always feel like every relationship can be repaired if you sit and talk like adults. You know, you don't have to like each other, but if you respect each other and, you know, you can make anything work. I mean, hell, Kobe and Shaq did it for a long time. They didn't really care for each other, but they wanted to win, and they knew in order to win, this is what we got to do. So if they could do it, I feel like it can happen. That's all I got.
Sure, Ron, they're going to be.
What you think, Mike?
All right, well, I'm go blue all life. So, you know, I'm a Tom Brady dude. I'm not a Tom Brady dude at the expense of Jameis Winston, though. We have quarterbacks all over the league throwing for mad picks. Yeah, he hit a 30 number. Look at the top quarterbacks all the time and the picks they've thrown. They were called gunslingers. They were given shots, multiple support. I would like to see Jameis get a little more time with Bruce Arians, you know, considering, you know, how great he's been with quarterbacks throughout his career. I understand that you have to go and get Tom Brady if Tom Brady wants to leave New England. I get that. Jameis obviously has been much maligned since the days of Florida State, the trouble he was getting in down there, you know, the perception of him. You know, I totally get that. When cats like Phillip Rivers and Matt Stafford and all these guys get to hide behind the narrative of quarterbacks and, you know, their value to teams and have never really done anything. You know, Phillip Rivers has had the gift of 100 touchdown teammates. You know, he isn't going to a Super Bowl. I struggle with it. I struggle with it. You know, you guys pretty much know me by now. I go against the mainstream grain because, you know, I want to offer a semblance of truth. You know, I want to give people what they need instead of what they want. I hope that Jameis finds a spot, you know, and you guys can read between the lines what I'm trying to say here. You know, I really think that him, and we'll talk later about Cam Newton, you know, should have been highly sought after free agents. You know, understand that, you know, when it's COVID-19 times where, you know, things are a little bit delayed because of everything being shut down. But the NFL and their PR machine, are able to do anything on their watch at any time, no matter what time of the year it is. So I thought that, things should have moved a little bit faster. Like Rivers landed in Indianapolis. Um, I really want to get a true shot. There are teams that could use his arm talent. Obviously he needs to rein in his decision making. That's obvious. But in my opinion, he's done nothing more crazier than any of the top quarterbacks, coming into the league as they develop. So many different coaches, so many different offensive coordinators. There's no consistency, for him to be able to fall in love with his quarterback coach, if you will. That's how those guys truly succeed. It's a relationship type thing. When there's no consistency, things start to happen. I do think that Arians adored Jameis Winston. He threw his support behind him. I didn't get to cover a Tampa Bay game. It's just a thought of mine, an opinion. Just seeing how he would respond in press conferences and the like. But I would like to see Jameis get a true shot somewhere to be able to show and prove, how great a quarterback he could become. I thought that, after his freshman year at FSU, that he had a shot to be the best quarterback ever. Based on his talent. He lost one game in college, I think it was. Coming to the league, he did the necessary things, throwing for 4,000 yards early on, and has thrown for more yards ever at this stage of his career than any other quarterback has ever played the game. But he gets jettisoned. Especially in a time where we live in the stat time where, the Breezes, the Mannings, the Bradys, the Favres, the Aaron Rodgers, all those dudes, it's about stats. They talk about the stats of them. The 4,000-yard seasons, the 5,000-yard seasons. And rarely, if ever, these quarterbacks have won Super Bowls despite all of the stats. So, I understand the scrutiny. I'm not going to sit here and absolve Jameis Winston of any of the scrutiny that he has been thrown his way. But the fact that he's just being cast aside is kind of demeaning. It's kind of demeaning. It's almost embarrassing and ridiculous, in my opinion. So I hope that he lands somewhere where he can have those shoulder chips, as I call them, to be able to give it back to those people who don't believe in him.
Yeah, so for me, I rooted for Brady in 99? Like, just because I hated the Rams. So I wanted the Patriots to win, and that's with Lawyer Malloy and those guys. And it was like, hey, I learned early on that defense wins ball games. So I felt like the Patriots, with that great defense, Ty Law, Willie McGinest, like they were going to beat the Rams. And they did. They shocked the world and beat the Rams. So it wasn't even about Brady. It was about the Patriots beating the Rams. And boy, have I gone against Brady every other chance I've gotten ever since then. Like, I've never rooted for him to win a game, like, ever. So it's been an interesting run for me. Like, I do recognize his greatness. I do appreciate that he's from Northern California. That means something to me. I appreciate the fact that he idolized Joe Montana. That means something to me. And I love when someone can go back to the lab and get a fresh start. That being said, I don't like that it's at the expense of Jameis Winston. And I already wasn't necessarily going to pull for Tampa Bay, even if Winston wasn't in the mix. Like, I did kind of pull for them because Winston was there. But now I guess I'm still pulling against Brady because I don't want them to do well after having excommunicated Jameis Winston. So that's where I'm at with it. With that, now the Jameis Winston part, boy, this is almost like an alternate reality for me. We have coronavirus, we got COVID-19 going on, and it's like the world is upside down. But it's like the NFL, as it pertains to black quarterbacks, is really upside down. Cam Newton has been shown the door. First, they released reports saying that he's asked to be traded, and we've granted it. And he's like, no, that's not what happened. I didn't ask for this. And then they're like, all right, well, go ahead and seek a trade. We're going to replace you. And boy, are we going to replace you with a name you don't even know, but go find a job if a job's available. Jameis Winston, go find a job if a job's available. And it's just pretty amazing that on the one hand, you have a guy that threw 30 touchdowns. Yes, he did throw 30 interceptions, but he threw 30 touchdowns. So maybe it's a couple of mechanical things that you can tweak to have to fix that accuracy, or maybe it's like a focus on the times that he's not connecting, because he is connecting a lot. It's just that there are a lot of times when he's not connecting. So I feel like there are things that you can do to fix what's wrong, and to just throw him out there and him not get immediately picked up is amazing to me. The fact that Cam Newton still hasn't been signed, that's amazing to me. And you know, obviously they were going to re-sign Brady. Phillip Rivers got a job pretty quickly. I will say that I'm happy that, like, on this topic, that Teddy Bridgewater got a job, since it was obviously time for him to leave New Orleans. But I don't understand how this recent MVP, who still plays at a high level when healthy, Cam Newton, is essentially out of a job right now. And then what's happening with Jameis Winston? Like, we're trying people out that were in the what's the league? The XFL. We got XFL signees, and I know that they have less of a ticket on them, but it's just amazing to me. You have a proven cat who you've just thrown away. So NFL free agency is kind of bonkers to me. I don't know. Todd Gurley. I know that all of us have paid attention to another former MVP, right? Or maybe he wasn't MVP, but he was Offensive Player of the Year, something like that. I know that he was high up there. And boy, did it come crashing down. And is it related to the knee? Like, what's the deal? And I know he found another job, but is Gurley done? What do you guys think?
Well, I'm a just go ahead and give a little bit on Brady in that situation first, and then I'll jump on Gurley. With me, I agree with all you guys. Especially, I try to be careful with who. Excuse me, hold on.
Okay,
hold on, let me
try
get
to be
6
careful.
feet away from my screen.
Right.
Clorox your phone real quick.
Social distancing.
Let me back up. All right. I try to be careful with who I really push for when it comes to people who get cast off, because some people actually should be cast off and some people shouldn't. But definitely what Mizzo said, with who's been signed and the history of what's been going on with, especially with black quarterbacks, there's no way in hell Jameis shouldn't have a job if he hasn't been signed already. I haven't really been checking the stat tracker. Cam should definitely be signed, considering Phillip Rivers left the team with receivers who were capable of getting 1,000 yards each. And he had 1,000-yard back, which is, the numbers are kind of skewed now. 1,000-yard running back doesn't really mean what it used to when they were really pounding the ball. But he had a team. He had a defense. He had a questionable offensive line, but he was a veteran, and he had been in the league long enough to know what to do when the pocket collapsed with that kind of talent around him. And you can't really say the same thing for Cam Newton. So Cam Newton should definitely have gotten a job. As far as Winston, when I first saw Winston play at Florida State, my first thought was, this dude, there are some kids who are like not good at school and not good at other things. This dude was born to play football. I mean, not as was, but if he wasn't a good student, he was definitely born to play football. He had all the intangibles. He had he had fixable flaws. I'll say that when I saw him play. And I still think if he gets with the right coach who will let him play freely, because Bruce Arians is very rigid from what I understand, but if he goes with the right coach who will let him play freely and let him be the happy-go-lucky, throw downfield quarterback he is, I think you will see him really blow up, because he shows glimpses that he could be the worst quarterback in the league, or he can turn around and be the greatest quarterback in the league. There's really no in-between with him. And, like you guys said earlier, I think that just comes with the right fit. I don't think it's something that can't be solved. So he should definitely have a job. Very excited for Teddy Bridgewater. He's waited his turn. He's overcome, career-threatening injuries. And I'm just hoping that he received a big enough pay. Because, when I see other people, I'm not sure do you remember what he got?
$60 million.
60 for 3 or
3 years.
3 years. Yeah, $20 million a year. And I'm thinking if Phillip Rivers got 25,
right,
he should get 25 at least. He was actually winning while he was on the field.
Yeah.
So he should get 25. Phillip Rivers, they haven't been past the first round of playoffs, as far as I know. Brady, I think, is going to make that okay team better. I don't think they're going to win a Super Bowl, but he's got pieces. He's got a defense. He's got Mike Evans, a number one receiver. He's got another good number two receiver on the other side. So I'm sure he knew going in that he may not get AB. I don't think he went in there blindly, because he's pretty smart. So I'm sure they told him, hey, we may or may not do it. And he still looked at the roster and probably still saw this was a fit, especially when he has a coach from New England. So he doesn't have to relearn a whole new system or language or anything like that. And just based on the history of sports, normally when a superstar leaves a team, that team sinks the following year in all sports. As far as football, baseball, basketball, you normally don't get the same championship caliber team unless you're going from Joe Montana to Steve Young, which they're not. They don't have someone sitting in the wings waiting, to be a star. So do they have a system in place to be, okay? Yeah, they do. But I don't see them, and I'm a Raiders fan, so I've hated Brady since day one. Since that.
Oh,
but it was time for him to have a fresh start, considering apparently they were all getting into it, and fresh start. I just hope he gets that dance instead of them saying, well, we're going to take a look at this young guy coming out of wherever. They're just basing, his draft position on some combine performance, and then he gets to the league and does nothing. Kind of like the guy who was drafted by Chicago Bears, Jay from Vanderbilt. What was his name?
Cutler.
Jay Cutler. Based on combine stuff. I mean, and he gets there and just acts a complete fool, but keeps a job. So, once again, Mezzo, to your point, you keep giving people jobs like that, he definitely deserves a job.
Oh, gosh. I mean, can I say something about Cam real? I mean, that 4th and 10 against Alabama, that out that he threw, they basically won him the Heisman in the national championship. He comes to the league, throws for 400 yards in consecutive games out the box, went on against Aaron Rodgers, where Aaron Rodgers was giving him mad praise at the podium post-game. Throws for 4,000 yards that season, sets a record. I think he beats it by like 1,200 yards. He rushes for 14 touchdowns. Obviously, that's a record. I mean, he's amassed 4,800 yards on the ground and 58 touchdowns. There are Hall of Fame backs that don't have 58 touchdowns. I thought that he was on pace to truly get 100 touchdowns on the ground. And for that to happen, or even be considered to happen at the quarterback position, was kind of ridiculous. I think that, honestly, I'm going to be honest here again, I think that it is the fault of black NFL writers, who fail to value rushing yards. I call it bonus ball. 3rd and 10, statue quarterbacks are throwing the ball away. It's a lost possession. Quarterbacks like Cam, obviously Lamar Jackson, and they're like, are getting that first down, which is giving them a bonus possession. Those 58 touchdowns is something that has been dismissed, egregiously. If you ever been to a Carolina game, when they get into the 30-yard line, you start to see the kids come down from the top of the stadium, just seeking a chance to get that football. For all the stuff that he's done off the field, there was a cancer patient they were very close to, during that Super Bowl year, MVP year. All the stuff that he did charity-wise was pretty amazing down there. And I understand that New Orleans want their own people. And also understand that, it's probably a business decision to get rid of Cam because they can really just gut the team. Luke Kuechly retires. Obviously, the team has really left, and it's a shell of what it was. I thought that the nail in the coffin for Carolina was Josh Norman leaving. Whether he fit on other NFL teams is not even a story. He fit with Carolina. And the fact that Gettleman, allowed him to leave based on his ego. And you see the decisions that he's made post, leaving Carolina. It just it's very suspect to me. The point that I'm really trying to make about black quarterbacks is in terms of consistency. Consistency having, offensive schemes, coordinators. They all seem to have inconsistent, support. There has not been a black quarterback that's played 10 years for one team as a starter. 10-year starter with five. Just give him 5 years with the wide receiver one. There has been none. We could talk about Cam and Steve Smith being ripped away with him, which would have created a legacy. Okay, Steve Smith being ripped away from Cam at such a young stage in his career, especially given that he came out the box throwing for 4,000 yards. I thought it was just ridiculous. I'm here in Philly, and I know the whole story between Donovan and T.O. But the fact that they didn't make that work was funny to me, and how the media here made sure that tie was severed completely. And they were bringing teal caskets to the games. Dante, Randy Moss,
That's good.
so many times. The fact that Tennessee didn't draft Randy Moss, and it was the obvious thing to do. Even Philadelphia, there's also an indifference with black coaches and black quarterbacks. Like, I want Anthony Lynn to get it, even though Tyrod is there. And I don't want to take Tyrod's job from him, but I want to see him do something, because when it's all said and done, Anthony Lynn will be the man who stopped Lamar Jackson as a rookie by throwing defensive backs all over the field in that game. He deserves to truly be the winner, because he's a genius. He's a defensive wizard. And I would hope to see him, truly get a star where he can build behind and throw his mind on the field in that quarterback. But as I was saying earlier, I would like to see some consistency with black quarterbacks and wide receiver ones, not a bunch of 2s and 3s all over the field. Truly the shot to not do it alone. If things break down, yes, run, get that first down. Did you know that Colin Kaepernick had the best third down conversion rate of all time? Of all time when he was in San Francisco. That's because he was getting that first down with his legs if he did not make the play with his arm. I truly think that the NFL has tried to limit, or even not shut the faucet off, but just kind of slow the faucet. The trickle that you hear at night, just drip, drop, with black quarterbacks. We see the proliferation now and potential, of Mahomes through Jackson, and also I forgot to say Deshaun Watson. Okay, and what happened with him and his wide receiver Hopkins and ripped away from him.
Right.
Why does that happen? How does that happen? It seems like the success wants to be stunted because the league does not want this to become the NBA. That's my opinion. It's something that I've followed for so long. I've written so many pieces on black quarterbacks and studied them. I work for an editor, and I won't say the outlet name, but remember when they were saying that Michael Vick held the ball too long in Philly, and he was getting sacked and concussions were happening, and Andy Reid had him on 7 and 8 straight 8-step drops.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I did is I got some video from a friend of mine, and I studied the snap, the time of the snap, and Michael Vick was under the average before he released the ball. The narrative was he held on to the ball too long. It was an absolute lie. He was getting the ball away quicker than the average quarterback in the league. But once that narrative is set, the fans begin to see it and believe it, and it becomes something that the quarterback just has to endure. Now, I wrote a piece at that time, and I wanted to enter that statistic into the piece. And my editor, who is a high-profile guy at the time, said, "Don't pull on Superman's cape." Superman being the NFL. It's kind of hindered me from truly becoming an NFL writer Anthony, the last time I was in the NFL locker room, and the lie that was told there, it just seems like that we as Black male writers in particular have to follow almost as if it's a lesson for us to stay in our place. I'm very critical of Stephen A. Smith, very critical of him. I sat down and did an interview with him. I think it was after a Sixers game. It might have been halftime, where I asked him a question about Donovan McNab, and I was expecting him to give him some shine. Because there was 5 NFC championships in a year, and he went the other way, and I basically stopped the interview. I said, "Man, I can't run this. Like, where's the scrutiny coming from? Him calling Dwayne Haskins a running quarterback. He calls Cam Newton an athlete. Despite his statistics and his success, like he's an athlete playing a position. He was not a Lamar Jackson guy early on. As Lamar Jackson obviously did his thing last year, then all of the mainstream started to come aboard the ship because they had to, because success was in their face. Even after Lamar lost that game against Tennessee, it almost as if he was wiped off the map, and the talk just became about Patrick Mahomes. That rivalry will become Manning and Brady, or it might even surpass that, because those two young kids are going to ball out. But here's the thing. We as Black sports writers need to write exactly how they play, exactly what they do, the success of their ability. And when that doesn't happen, you're suspect to me, and I don't believe you anymore. And, I tell these guys all the time, if you want to debate me on a national stage, be prepared, because I'm coming with the fire. If you try to dismiss these quarterbacks as being second class, second rate, like the small time scrutiny becomes like this fireball, snowball that becomes the criticism for the rest of their careers. And this is the reason why their leases are so short, and they're not given a true chances to step and ascend to a true prominence, to where it's not Moreno, Brady, Elway anymore. They don't even mention Warren Moon alongside those dudes. Despite what he's done, and those 7 years he was in the CFL, translate those years to the NFL, and he is at the top of every statistical measure, But I really, truly feel in my soul that it is up to Black sports writers to say to themselves, we have to write this right. We have to talk about the effect of rushing yards on victories, on first downs, on the momentum of the game. What we began to see last year with Lamar Jackson was the time of possession and how that was affected. If you allow Baltimore to run the ball, they're going to beat you. And that's based on what Lamar is doing in the pocket, as well as outside the pocket and down the field with all these shifty giddiness. He was a fun quarterback to watch. But, what usually happens to finish up is the narrative of these quarterbacks starts low. Like they say, well, he can't be a pocket passer, or Cam is a head case. Or this was very interesting what they said about Deshaun Watson. They would say that he was a turnover machine, despite, all of his peers throwing more interceptions to him coming into the draft. And that allowed Trubisky, with his all of 14 games at North Carolina, to be picked ahead of him. And the same thing with Daniel Jones. Like, not saying that Daniel Jones isn't going to pan out, because he looks to be talented, but there's no way that he should have been picked over Dwayne Haskins and his 50 touchdowns at Ohio State. So, I follow this. I've always followed it. Like I said, I've written many pieces on black quarterbacks. It's fine-tuned in my mind. I know what should be said. I know what should not be said. And as soon as I hear what should not be said, you're dismissed, because you have a different agenda as a reporter. And it's not to pass along the truth for time.
Reporters, that's who's gonna get paid, who's gonna take a beating. They dictate all of that. I mean, they give a push in the beginning of the season in every pro sport of who's going to be the MVP, and that person automatically becomes the front runner, whether we think he can play or not, or she can play or not. And most of the time, it's a person I probably don't agree with.
Right.
But
last year it was Carson Wentz, right? It was Carson Wentz coming into the season, and it was embarrassing again, to even when Cam and Lamar Jackson were doing their thing and winning like crazy games along a winning streak, they were like, could they be the MVP? Like, I thought it was crazy. Like, I love Russell Wilson, and he does deserve his MVP one of these years, But when Lamar and them went up to Seattle and beat Seattle, dominated them, and then the next game he beat Tom Brady, there should have been no other talk about MVP. There should have been no other talk. Like, it should have been like a foregone conclusion that he was the MVP at that point in the season. And there were still these black analysts that continue to debate whether or not he was a true MVP, when we know if it was their counterparts of a different hue, that would not have happened. They would have given it to them, and that would have been the narrative for the rest of the year. It just was ridiculous to me. A lot of them guys were saying about Lamar Jackson that, well, we'll see if he has the touchdown lead at the end of the season, but I don't think that he will. Look what he did. Just look what he did. It was, both Cam and Lamar Jackson have two of the best quarterback seasons in the history of the league, because it was not just about the stats. It was the fact that they lost less than 3 games, and they were the reason. The fact that Cam did it almost by himself with 2s and 3s all over the field, instead of having that. Like, could you imagine if Cam would have had Anthony, AB in that Super Bowl, or DeAndre Hopkins or somebody else, they would have won these Super Bowls. And I'm glad that Russell Wilson got over the hump and won one. Kaepernick was a pass interference call with Randy Moss away from winning one when the lights was turned out. Again, what I mean? It seemed like all these things happen for these dudes not to win these Super Bowls, even after post Super Bowl, when the press conference, when he could hear his competitor, slam all over him in earshot. Like, Anthony, you've covered Super Bowls. I've covered Super Bowls. That like never happens. It's never happened since, where they do these press conferences to where he can hear what these dudes are saying. Post a completely demeaning loss. I don't want to sit here and allow people to say that I want these quarterbacks to be victimized. All I want them to have is the same consistency as their white counterparts when it comes to how they're graded, analyzed, and reported on. That's it. It's just a simple thing to me. And, it's on us, because they're not going to do it. Our history should be written by us. And it's not writing us as some superhuman, mythical type thing. It's only writing the truth and allowing the fans to scrutinize us accordingly.
Yeah.
You know, and we've had one black president over all this time and the millions of black people who have ever existed on our soil. So you can't sit here and tell me that black leadership isn't seen as suspect. They find what the weakness is and they drill it home, and it becomes something that follows these quarterbacks till they leave. You tell me that Donovan McNab isn't a Hall of Fame quarterback, given that he's in the top 10 of wins and everything else, and he went to 5 NFC championship games with no receivers, except the one year that he did have one. He went to the Super Bowl, lost by 3 points to Brady. You know, the scrutiny is different. It is different. It's not consistent. It's not loving. You know, it's weak. It's insecure. You know, it's not a true measure of who these cats are. And until then, it's on us. It's on us. It truly is. I'm not going to sit here and say that white writers should write it. It's on us. We're in there. We're in the locker room. We see it. We're on the field. We're doing these things here. We should be the ones following it and writing it correctly. And until then, we're not going to see it. Like even next year, say Lamar Jackson goes 15-1 and loses in the first round. That's going to become his narrative.
Yeah.
You know, and he's early into his career. The he's not even 24 yet.
Right.
So
Yeah,
one thing that sorry, Rod. One thing that really resonates is the fact that you say it's got to be us. It takes me. If you guys will remember the song by Ice Cube, "Us," when he talks about, you know, how essentially we hold each other back in many aspects, and we have to be the ones to get certain things turned around. So even if it's us dispelling the narrative by writing the right, or like you said, writing right. And it's interesting that you said that like that, because that made me think of the Ice Cube song "Us," and I actually just watched, on an unrelated note, but it's related because of lineage, I just watched Just Mercy last night.
Wow.
And O'Shea Jackson Jr. is in that. Obviously, we know that's Ice Cube's son. So, and then actually I'm rewatching another movie. I can't remember what it's called, Den of Thieves, which O'Shea Jackson Jr. is also in. So this is like Ice Cube Jr. marathon for me. And then the song "Us." But just to drive one point home, yes, there is no reason why Donovan McNab should not be in the Hall of Fame. You're absolutely right. And that doesn't lessen anything else that you said. You're right about those things too, but I just want to be on record saying that Donovan McNab belongs, and there shouldn't be an argument. So many times the media say future Hall of Famer this, future Hall of Famer that, future Hall of Famer da 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 da. And I've always been one to say, just let the people get in. You know, just call them a Hall of Famer once they get in. But boy, do they, by and large, pick and choose who they categorize as future Hall of Famer. And outside of basketball, where we know that they do get it right, by and large, outside of basketball, when they say
Steve Nash.
Well, that's not. I mean, that takes us back to the back-to-back MVP. Like, what are you doing, writers? Back-to-back MVP, which is a whole. Yeah, I don't want to throw up. Like, I'm feeling pretty healthy right now. The great points, absolute great points. Ryan, I think you were going to make a comment.
Oh, I was going to say, I've been hearing so many years about how great Brady has been. And I'm thinking to myself, especially last year, Russell Wilson was on his 4th string running back, and his best receiver was a rookie. And he's been playing with number 3 receivers You can go down the list. Lockett, Golden Tate.
Yeah.
All of those are number 3s on everyone else's team but Seattle. And he's still been winning. Still getting them to a championship games, Super Bowls, throwing to, receivers that are really not coveted by others. They're just good role players. And last year really is when he really showed me how great he was. Because I'm like, they called Marshawn Lynch up off the couch, and they were still winning.
Yeah.
Or I think they lost a couple games by 1 point. I think, they lost. They beat Frisco, and then they lost, and then they lost to Baltimore. But they were killing, and Procise and every running back they had was down. And Pete Carroll's teams are dependent on being balanced.
Okay. First, I need you to relax. We don't need to throw in that they beat San Francisco. And especially when San Francisco came back and beat them, right? San Francisco came back and beat them.
I threw that in.
Well, you didn't specify. You said they beat Frisco and then lost. You didn't say and lost to
No,
Frisco.
I did say they lost to San Francisco and lost to Baltimore. I said that.
You said they beat Frisco and lost to Baltimore. That's what you said.
And then lost to Frisco.
But you didn't say that. So now it's on record. Now it's on video and audio. You saying that. Just want to make sure that part is clear. But listen, San Francisco fan, but I recognize Russell Wilson's greatness, right? I know this man's line from last year: 4,100 yards, 31 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 106.3. That sounds like a radio station. Quarterback rating. The year before, 3,500 yards, 35 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 110 QBR. Russell Wilson is
with 700 rushing yards.
Okay, yeah. Let's bonus ball, as my man Mizzo calls it, right? Like, yeah, he's a phenomenal individual, and yeah, doing it without all of the parts. And it's funny that the narrative will be Tom Brady is even greater because they'll say he's never had parts, which is absolutely untrue. But yeah, and so what you can't discount is the fact that whatever the pieces were, the dude was behind the wheel 6 times when they won. And if you add on the times that they lost, did they lose 3 times? Was it 6 and 3?
Yeah.
That's a lot of trips there, right?
Yeah. Ridiculous.
So there is something there, right? But that doesn't discount the things that others have done. And Russell Wilson, unlike Brady, who was not starting out the gate, Russell Wilson dove into the NFL and started balling. Like, he just never looked back. He was like, yeah, I'm here. This is who I am. Let's go. And in many ways, he hasn't gotten his due. And, again, I recognize greatness. It's being a Laker fan and watching Jordan run wild, like, I recognize that the dude was great. It hurt when he did that in LA. Like, it was bad. Like, but I recognize greatness, right? Why you have to do that? But yeah, man, I don't know. All right, anything else on this topic before we move on? Because I got something else to introduce.
No, because I definitely want to ask you a Mookie Betts question. So
okay.
You mentioned that in the beginning of your introduction. So I want to pose a question to you that I saw online.
You want to pose it now, or you?
Whenever we're switching.
Well, I'm ready to switch, but I was going to switch to something else. But we can go, Mookie. Go ahead.
Okay. So the question is, no. Very simple. The question is.
Yes, he does.
Mookie.
100%.
Okay. Mookie got traded to the Dodgers for Verdugo and a pitcher.
Allegedly. Okay.
But we're in a year where they're not playing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if this year ends where they don't get to play, And the Major League Baseball has said no matter what, as far as contracts, you also get to use this year as one of your years, basically essentially saying you played. So if you're trying to be a free agent, you can become a free agent. Should those players who Mookie Betts traded for get to go back to the Dodgers if Mookie Betts doesn't get a chance to play and he decides not to re-sign with the Dodgers?
No. Why?
Because he's in the last year of his contract. So this year under contract, it counts for him.
Yeah, that's almost – so I'm going to tell you what I equate that question to. I equate that to – no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do you like that. No, I don't believe that there should be any kind of concessions given to anyone. I do believe that he should re-sign, but if the year is counting, the year is counting. So they're closer to whatever their end game is too. The Dodgers shouldn't get anything back. Also, the season's not going to be canceled, so I'm not really worried about that. But in your scenario, no. Do you feel they should get concessions?
Reverse the trade. I don't think that they would have made that trade if he couldn't play. That the whole reason to make that trade is because he's the piece that could get them a World Series.
So okay, so we're gonna walk everything
so it's
back.
Almost like someone who doesn't pass a physical. Like you don't pass a physical.
But he passed the physical.
Trade is over.
But he passed the physical.
Right. I'm giving an example.
And he played in spring training.
He hasn't played.
He played in spring training.
That doesn't count.
Why not?
That doesn't count.
Okay.
It has no bearing on the season.
So in your scenario, Dusty Baker is no longer the manager of the Astros. We're gonna put AJ Hinch back. We're gonna put Alex Cora back with the Red Sox.
Well, no, they signed as free agents, and they're multiple years.
No, but if this year, in your mind, the year doesn't count, even though the year counts, then why don't we just undo everything? That's what I'm saying.
Right, but Dusty Baker signed for more than 1 year, so he's still under contract for more years.
No,
I'm talking about in this case
because none of this happened, is what I'm saying.
No. I'm saying
so there's no job opening.
They only traded for him for this year as a way to get a World Series.
And it had nothing to do with those other players. So on paper, the Dodgers
they were what they traded for.
Yes or no?
Say it again.
Okay, let me give one thing that you can't dispute. On paper, the Dodgers are the best team in the National League. Yes or no?
Without Betts, no.
No. Right now, as constructed, the Dodgers are the best team in the National League on paper. Yes or no?
Arguably.
I
don't think so, but arguably yes.
Okay, please tell me.
They let their pitchers go.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna have to bring Mizzo in.
They got a hitter, but they don't have any pitchers.
A hitter. Is that what you just called?
A great hitter. A great hitter. But one great hitter can't win a championship.
Future Hall of Famer Mookie Betts. Let's not just call him a hitter.
Yes.
He's also a Gold Glove. Consistent Gold Glove.
And with no pitching, he won't even get to use that glove because the ball will be going over his head.
David Price is healthy. You picked up David Price.
David Price is washed.
Well, if you believe that, then I can't even have this conversation with you. So
who's the best
in the National League?
You do know what his ERA was when he was pitching last year, right?
With a fractured wrist, yes, I do. I was a Red Sox fan, remember, and I'm a big David Price fan.
I'm glad he's out of the AL East.
See? So who is it for you, Rod? The Washington Nationals? The Colorado Rockies?
The Nationals still have a shot to repeat.
So they
still got all their pitchers.
That's your argument? The Nationals?
They have pitching.
I'm asking, is that your argument? The Nationals?
I hadn't really thought of who it would be. But
right? Come on.
Washington, yes, has to be considered the favorite, considering they're the world champs.
Okay, well, they're not the favorite, so sorry. They're not the favorite.
That's like Rod saying Toronto needed to be the favorite this year or something.
What are you talking about?
Come on.
Not the favorite, Rodney.
Toronto is still winning.
By the way, let's not even talk about
Toronto
the
is
fact
winning.
that let's not even talk about the fact that Clayton Kershaw has been wronged, right? He's been wrong.
Oh yeah. Oh hell yeah.
He has
Right?
been wrong,
He has
but he's
been
also
wrong.
lost 5 miles an hour on his fastball.
But mentally, he's going to be right because it's like, wow, I wasn't as bad as I thought I was. They cheated me. The Houston Astros cheated me and messed with my legacy. But listen, I'm not going to belabor this point with you. I was going to say arguably the best team in baseball out of respect to the Yankees. You talking about not even the best in the National League. I can't even have a conversation with you. What do you say? What say you, Tillery? Dodgers, National League.
To the main
Well, yeah, I mean, Mookie Betts to me is a Ricky Henderson type player, you know, with evolutionary power, you know, and Ricky has some power, obviously. Well, the home runs he hit in the leadoff position, but I adore Mookie Betts. I'm glad he is gone from the American League East, and I was shocked when the Red Sox started to float the idea of trading, you know, such a. I am of the opinion you don't trade a Hall of Famer because it kind of stunts and fractures your fan base. You know, the kids that came into the league that wanted to watch Mookie Betts as young kids, you know, that wore his jerseys in Boston, I guarantee you they cried.
True.
They will never be a Red Sox fan again, and they are moving over to the Dodgers in a true sense. How I left the Sixers when Barkley was traded, and when they traded Allen Iverson, he was averaging 37 points a game to Denver. You know, I became a sports writer then. My fan loyalty left. You know, I still follow the Sixers, you know, obviously because Doc and Wilt and all them dudes, Andrew Toney, you know, but, you know, you don't trade Hall of Famers. You just don't do it. It shouldn't even be a consideration because the value is never requited. You know, you don't get it back. And, you know, Mookie Betts will go down as one of the best baseball players ever. He's kind of overshadowed in a media sense for obvious reasons in terms of white writers, you know, writing about Trout and the dude down and he plays for Philly now, you know. You know, yeah, I just don't want to mention his name. I don't like the kid. I had a run.
That's right. That's your backyard. My bad. Yeah.
You know, so you know, I had a run with him as well. So you know, it's you know, you don't trade Hall of Famers. You don't trade Hall of Famers. Carolina will lose half of his fan base for how they did Cam Newton, who still is on track to becoming a Hall of Famer based on those aforementioned 58 touchdowns. You know what I mean? So Mookie Betts is young. He's so talented. He has so much wear left in his body. You know, and the fact that all of these athletes are able to rest now, you know, that jet lag has been the killer of baseball players, you know, because they spend half the year on a plane, basically, you know. So the fact that he's able to rest now, you're going to see a great player even ascend to astronomical heights because, you know, now he's in the National League, you know, where you know, small ball is bigger, you know, and he'll get to show all of his gifts, you know, in terms of his defense and offense. And, you know, he really doesn't have any pressure on him because he's done everything in Boston, you know. You know, this kid should have been MVP. I mean, he's an amazing player. I can't say enough about the guy. I'm glad the MFR is gone
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah, and since since Mike is celebrating his departure, I just want to offer Mike a gift. I watched 30 for 30 the other day, so I was reminded of something that I know is foremost in your mind quite a bit. October 17th, October 18th, October 19th, October 20th,
Oh gosh.
2004. Four
Oh my
great
God.
days in American history.
I hate
Four
Dave
great
Roberts.
days, 4 great days in New York history. 4 better days in Red Sox history.
Oh my
You guys
gosh.
don't know what happened on those
Lord,
4 days. Outside of it being my sister's birthday on the 17th, the 17th was when Game 4 of the 2004 American League Championship Series kicked off, and the Yankees were pummeling the Red Sox. They were up 3-0. And you only have to get to 4. Well, let's just say no one had ever even forced a Game 7 being down 3-0 in baseball playoffs. And not only did the Red Sox force a Game 7, but they won Game 7 going away. Even with the chance of the "Who's Your Daddy," Pedro's just laughing at those clowns as he came in and did a little damage, and that was that World Series. Anyway, my gift to you, just a reminder of October 17th through 20th. I know those were tough days for you, but I love you, brother. I do. Yeah. So anyway,
Good Lord.
Rodney, you are a Dodger fan. You're on record as a Dodger fan, and I
Definitely.
think that sometimes you're kind of like Skip Bayless in that you just say things for shock value. And I don't believe that you believe that the Dodgers are not the favorites in the National League. I don't believe that you believe that. I don't believe that you put thought into that, and that's the solution.
Without pitching, I don't think so. You have to have balance.
Okay.
You name one championship team that doesn't have a great pitching staff.
Well, one team that doesn't have a great pitching staff. Well, I'll go with the.
I won't even say great. Say dominant.
Well, you said great though. So
okay. Well, we can leave it there. That's tougher.
2018 Red Sox didn't have a great pitching staff.
Huh? What?
We had 2 aces that were both injured and creeping through. We had an injured closer. I mean, come on, dude. You saying great? You say they all washed up. But listen, we can come back to that. You're on record as saying you got the Nationals winning the World Series. I will post that to your wall.
I said they're the favorite. I didn't say they're in the World Series.
Yeah, they have, because apparently you feel like they have great pitching. So there you go.
Yeah, and they got their whole team coming back.
And the Dodgers got better. And the Dodgers were the 1 seed. Yes or no?
They got better on offense.
They got better. No, Rod, they got better. That's the seed that you're missing. They got better, and they were already the 1 seed.
Does Houston have a great pitching staff?
But do you do realize that part of the reason they were a 1 seed last year was because of their pitching?
And part of the reason that they got smoked was that they didn't have a future Hall of Famer in the lineup doing 7 different things.
Their pitchers gave up runs.
And so, Rodney, when you look at I'm going to close out my thing on the Dodgers, and I'll let you close out your point, Rod. When you look at the manager, Dave Roberts, and how he played, and he was not nearly as great as a Ricky Henderson or a Mookie Betts, but if you talk about his impact on baseball culture just by what he did in 2004, and you talk about small ball in the National League, and Mookie plays all ball, small ball, big ball, medium ball. Boy, I think he's going to utilize that piece in the right way. So I wanted to say that, but I'll let you close out baseball, right?
I mean, I don't have no doubt his impact, but a lot of times when you get great hitters like that, it kind of depends on what the other guys around him are doing. I mean, when Barry Bonds left San Francisco, the second baseman that he used to get into it with, my guy,
Kent.
Kent. Kent couldn't do as much as he always talked about. Barry was a bunch of hype and Barry didn't run anything. He didn't do anything when Barry left. I mean, Barry pretty much protected him. So, the Dodgers are going to have to have somebody who really steps up to make sure that Betts gets that same help that Bonds needed. And that's not always the case with Dodger hitters. Sometimes they're phenomenal, and sometimes Corey Seager and especially Bellinger, he may just go missing in action for stretches. And their pitching staff, the pitcher who they let go to Toronto was probably the best pitcher in the game coming back from his injury. The guy from Japan.
Yeah.
I don't know why I can't remember his name all of a sudden.
Man. Wow.
Because you're a Nationals fan. No, that's all.
But when you're letting go one of the best pitchers in the game, that's not easily replaced with somebody you're calling up from AAA. You can't, and you can't expect the same kind of dominance when the batters are not hitting the ball. And then you have an aging Kershaw.
But he's going to be that
Not that he wasn't wronged, but his pitches were getting slower and slower for the past 2 or 3 years. So when I look at stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, we got better offensively, but what got us there with the pitching and the bullpen, and they finally got a couple of relievers that are better than what they had, but they lost the starter that got them there. And what they were doing was they were leaving their starters out there for about 5 innings, and then they were using relievers for the rest of the game. So now you got a dominant starter who's not going to be there for that 5 innings. You got Bueller. But that's not the same David Price we're used to.
You don't know that. You're
based on the last 2 or 3 years. He has not.
I'm sorry, 2018 is in the last 2 or 3 years. You know what happened.
He hasn't been dominant. He has won, but he hasn't been dominant.
He was dominant.
Is my point.
He was dominant in 2018.
I disagree.
Capital D, title case, no, all caps, DOMINANT. It's okay. Trey,
Okay.
you got anything else on baseball before I turn the corner to?
Go ahead.
So, what have you guys been doing for your sports fix? I know what I've been doing, and I'm excited to share. I know what I've been doing. What have you guys been doing? I'm excited to share, but I'm gonna laugh.
All right, so I'm falling in love out of sports anyway. I'm falling in love out of sports, because of the way it's covered. I just think that it's like, so the NBA is very challenging for me to talk about on social media because it's become memes of Kobe, LeBron, LeVon versus Jordan, Kobe versus Jordan. Now it's at least they're talking about Wilton, Cat. It's the only sport that does this. And it's almost convenient. Like you don't hear conversations of was Larry Bird better than Bill Russell, or Magic better than Cap, or it's like the top players ever are pitted against each other, which demeans them all, because you're going to have people that are choosing sides based on their fan loyalty.
Yeah.
So yesterday I had to drive into Philly, and in the heart of the city, and I listened to 3 Hall of Fame speeches: Allen Iverson, Shaq and Michael Jordan. You know, I was listening to them because I wanted to hear them talk about Kobe. And obviously each of them did in their own way. Allen Iverson's speech was hard to listen to because he was almost crying the whole time, you know. But I'm trying to get the love back, you know, the actual love of the game sans social media, you know, and how it's devolved into these discussions that are meaningless for time, you know. I don't think LeBron's going to get his just due because of he'll always be compared to Michael Jordan, regardless of 23 and chosen one and all that kind of stuff. You know, there was just some greatness that he has exhibited throughout his career. And I mean, half his career he's been in the finals. You know, Allen Iverson. You know, I got close to him. You know, I got close to Gary Moore, his manager. You know, I was able to cover his retirement ceremony. Got wrote one of my best pieces. I thought I called it Allen Iverson falls the night Allen Iverson fell to the ceiling or something like that. You know, and Doc was there, and when they were putting his jersey up to the rafters, they bring all the jerseys down, all the banners down to the floor, and all of the players who are there that night get to stand and take pictures next to their numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking to Gary Payton outside, almost in the next to the locker room, you know, and he gave him some great quotes on Allen Iverson because they were close. So, you know, a lot of NBA players are close to players that you just wouldn't think that they're close to. You know, Allen Iverson talks many times about the player who I think it was 37-9 that Gary Payton gave him as a rookie. You know, so that's where his love for Allen Iverson came. And he talked about it in the whole thing speech. But I was listening to these speeches. I listened to Shaq, so his affinity for Doc. You know, Doc's is his hero. It was Shaq was so gifted as a comedian. You know what I mean? He says the right things at the right times where the shock value is something that's almost normalcy coming out of his mouth. You know, and I'd rather him do it off the cuff than even on a set of Inside the NBA. You know, but listening to Michael Jordan's speech, he was giving it to anybody that he could give it to. You know, and I appreciate it. A lot of people didn't like Michael Jordan's speech. I loved it. You know, because all the things that he has ever wanted to say, he said that day. You know, but to see Allen Iverson and Shaq have Doc up on that stage, and you know, I think that Doc is one of those players who's lost in time with this media that seems to think that Michael Jordan originated the NBA, started the NBA. You know, but to see him give his just due alongside of, I think it was Bill Russell that was there, and also Alonzo Mourning, and I'm thinking Zeke. I think Zeke. But, you know, to see that and hear that, and to hear it on the radio, you know, through the Bluetooth speakers, you know, as I'm riding past the Philadelphia stadiums. Yeah, I'm riding past it and I'm hearing, and it wasn't timed that way, but that's just how it was. And then how the roads are, it's ominous to be on the roads now at night.
Right.
You know, there's so few cars in it. You know, 9:30 seemed like it was 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning in Philly, maybe 4 or 5. You know, because still not the clubs or whatever. But you know, I had to hear the passion once again. You know, I am. You can call me bitter. You can call me bitter. That's cool. I'll take that. You know, but especially when you're an athlete, we're all athletes. You know, that's what's missing now. You know, that's in the debates, in the analysis of sports, the athlete debates are missing, coming from the athlete. You know, it's these hot takes from First Take or Undisputed or all these shows, Jason Whitlock and Marcellus Wiley, that's what sports has become now. The long form pieces aren't there. Anthony, you know me. I like to write these long form pieces. I remember a time I had to get the Cardinals and Eagles game, and I sent you a 4,000 word piece,
Yeah.
and you had to put it up on a wire service, but those pieces are missing. I like to write the exact moments of the game, the surroundings. The atmosphere, like I said, the smell of the grass, the roar of the crowd. And maybe it's because I'm getting older. I have more of a value in my life for those things. More people are covering sports that either haven't played them or are covering them from their couch. You cannot get a true sense of the game without being there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just cannot. I don't care who you are. It's so different because as soon as you walk in, there's an atmosphere that you feel, especially during a playoff game. This can't be duplicated from your couch because it's coming from your individual hearts. But yeah, man, I can ramble all damn night. Y'all know me.
No, listen. You make me think of two things, and I know Trey can feel me on this. Rodney, even with the T-shirt, you never know with him because he's got the Clippers as the best team in LA. He's got the best team in the National League. So we don't really know with him. But I know Trey remembers, and I know you remember as a basketball fan, Mizzo. But I know Trey remembers because we had a moment once we got to once the Pacers came to town. Trey and I were there for Game 6. We hugged, we cried. Game 6 of the finals. But you talk about being there, right? So it's crazy when the Lakers are turning the corner with Kobe and Shaq. And I'm a journalist, but I'm a fan. But we have to internalize it. We can't express any of that.
Right.
So the Lakers are down 15 to the Portland Trail Blazers, and I have to use the bathroom. And I'm sitting up in the press box, and I got my food, and I want to refill, and I have to use the bathroom. But I'm superstitious, and I'm like, if I don't move, they'll probably come back. So I don't move. They get a stop. They score. They get a stop and score. They get a stop and score. And I'm like, boy, this is really working. I hope I don't use the bathroom on myself. Ultimately, you remember the alley-oop and the whoo.
Yes.
You remember. But the piece that I wrote, it wasn't about me watching that on TV. And it wasn't a fan piece. It was just like the atmosphere. You could see LA change. Just the city of Los Angeles, even though it was inside of Staples Center, you could see the entire city change that night. Like it was different. It was different. And boy, was it something special. And the point is you have to be there. So I want to say that. And then one other thing you made me think of when you say Marcellus Wiley, little known fact, we played high school football together.
Oh, wow.
Marcellus Wiley and I were on the same team. He was a lot smaller than he was a little skinny kid. And I was about to, I'm the same size. So, it was great to have to have played. Well, he had a growth spurt. He grew another 8 or 9 inches, right? That's all I'm saying.
I'm just laughing at the way you said, well, I was the same size.
Well, because he was small, and now he's small, right? But yeah, we played in St. Monica together, so that was kind of cool. But
so who do you
were
think,
like a man
that,
on a high school campus.
Oh, there you go.
So who do you think Shaq told me the best team he ever played against was?
The best team he ever played against?
In the pros.
I'm sure he's saying in the NBA.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's saying it was whoever. Let's see. Let me think. It was probably when he was on the Magic.
No, he was in LA.
Oh, it was in LA.
Yeah.
Well, probably Portland. Had to be Portland. Yeah. Had to be Portland. Yeah. It couldn't have not been Portland because the second would have been Sacramento. Like it had to be. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. I've always said Portland is the greatest team not to win a championship. Top to bottom, that team was stacked. stacked.
Yeah, and
they were.
I mean, from 1 through 12.
Yeah, that left Shrimp.
Stacked.
Goodness.
yeah.
Scotty, Steve
That
Smith.
4 spot could win anywhere.
Rashid. Yeah. Like that was nuts.
Incredible.
That was all nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rashid, Brian Grant, you had all-stars lined up at 4 and 5.
See, Trey, he was a Portland fan at that point. Like Rodney was crushed.
Oh my goodness. I never jumped Thieves. Never.
He got excited, right?
Yeah. Rodney woke up. He's like, "Oh my blazers." Oh no.
Okay. So speaking of which, and I'm gonna tell you, it's funny you said that, because with me, I try to be as realistic with myself as possible, because I don't like to feel a huge letdown when I see weaknesses. So when I look at rosters or I look at certain flaws, like when the Lakers had Van Exel and Eddie Jones, I'm like, top to bottom, that is the best team in the league. No one could match them on paper, not even the Bulls. But when I looked at Dale Harris, I'm like, oh, that's too big of a weakness. He's holding them back. They're never going to win with Dale Harris. And I was correct. They didn't win with Dale Harris. He was never going to tell Shaq what to do. He was one of those coaches who felt like, I want to make sure I'm everybody's friend so no one gets mad at me and I don't say the wrong thing and lose my job because I got it good here. And they probably would have went to the conference championship every year and never got a title until they made a coaching change. And by that time, some players would have been leaving and the team would have been completely different. So fast forward, Phil Jackson came. He told Shaq, you need to go get a rebound, and they won a championship because Shaq has been lazy his whole career. He's hands down, if he played just an ounce of defense and got the rebounding numbers he was capable of, Shaq would no doubt, in my opinion, be the best thing since the wheel in the NBA, and there would even be a close second. I mean, physically, there was no one that could handle him.
Moses Malone has thousands more rebounds than him. Thousands.
Right. He didn't like playing defense. He definitely didn't like switching on a pick and roll. He didn't want to move his feet out of breath, but he wanted the ball on the other end so he could just get it and tear the rim down. And I don't know if sports writers looked at that and said, well, we can't really possibly put him in there as the best player ever. But I don't care what anybody says. If you started every player at their peak and said, who's the first person you're going to choose to build your team around, Shaq would unhandily probably be hands down picked by just about everyone. He controlled the game. No one could tell me Bill Russell at 220 pounds was going to guard Shaq in any era. I mean, because we saw what he did with people who weighed 280, 290, 300, 320. He made them look like ball.
Today's game.
Right.
If
he would control the pace.
First pick. Yeah.
Control the pace. So
I don't know, man. I'm still going with Wilt first.
Huh?
I'm still going with Wilt first.
I don't think he was talking about.
Hold on. Let me say this. Wilt Chamberlain was benching 500 pounds at 50 years old.
Yeah.
Right? Never benched 500 pounds.
No.
I still don't.
Never benched 500 pounds.
I still don't think.
But Shaq was just cock diesel.
Right.
Cock diesel. I mean,
Derek Fisher could almost lift 400 pounds.
Yeah, and he wasn't even a weightlifter. I mean, he didn't train. He lived at McDonald's. So what I've been doing to kill my time, it's funny you guys brought this stuff up the last episode. If you can see the videotape, I don't know if you can see the title. But that's the 92 championship.
Wow.
That I refuse to watch. So I have been watching the 92 Final Four. And Let me see what else I got. I got Ohio State, Michigan with the Fab Five. So these are a bunch of
Oh,
videos
Jimmy
with the Fab
Jackson.
Five.
Jimmy
I love
Jackson.
Jimmy Jackson.
Chris Gent.
With Lawrence Funderburg. Yep.
Yeah. Jamal.
Man.
Yeah.
And so I try to talk to my son about the era of when the game became great, but just before the money became too big. So you had that apex. And I think all of us in our generation have seen probably the apex of each sport.
Yeah.
Football, basketball, baseball, boxing. I think we've seen the apex.
Yeah, we're lucky.
Because once they started getting too much money, the love was just kind of starting to go south.
Mm-hmm.
And during that 80s, 90s, early 2000s, you could see that, like, folks were balling out of control because they wanted that next level money.
Yeah.
And it hadn't quite arrived yet. Now, people mistake the fact that the rules of some of these definitions have changed. Like when we were coming along in the 90s, a franchise player and a max player were the same.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not. You can be a max player and not be a franchise player. Like Mike Conley Jr. is a max player, but he's not a franchise player.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so the rules have changed. The rules have changed with assists. In the 80s, you couldn't put the ball on the floor once someone gave you the ball. You had to be going with a shot.
Now
Now
you can take 3 dribbles.
you can take, I mean, and the crazy part was back in the day, Magic Johnson used to complain how when he played in Utah, they would pencil whip him on assists. And I used to constantly watch John Stockton give it to Malone. Malone have his back to the basket, take a dribble, shoot a turnaround jumper, and Stockton still got an assist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how is that possible? And now it's even more where you can, you know, as long as no one else interrupts your shot, you can dribble 3 or 4 times down the floor. You can,
and you can start. To be clear, and you can travel.
And you can travel.
Euro step.
I mean, so
step back.
and I've also been watching little things like when I hear people complain about, oh, you can't touch players anymore. Well, I've been watching a lot of video from a lot of older NBA games, and one of the things that when Nisha and I met before we got married and we were friends.
This is right after the arc?
Mutual, huh?
It's right after the arc? Right after you and Noah built the arc? Oh, my bad.
Yeah, we have been together that long. But one of the things we bonded over was the fact that we both videoed early year Laker games. Like, she had, I guess, one of the first VCRs ever, and she had videoed Laker games from like 82, 83. And I'm like, really? You got tapes that old? And she's like, yeah, you want to come watch? And I'm like, yeah. So I go over there, and she's popping in Laker tapes. And I'm watching Jamal Wilson and Mike Shrek and all kind of people that play for Lakers. I'm like, well, I do this too. She's like, really? I'm like, yeah. So we hit it off, basically having that in common. And now, you know, we here together, so we got a whole collection of videos.
Yeah.
Except I don't
Pause there. Let's go out and come back in because it's about to shut down. So it's a good time to stop. So last time. Go out, come back in.
Cool.
VCR.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. So
you guys had the original game of charades back, you know, after the 40 days and 40 nights and all that.
So getting back to when just after AC bit that apple and we all started going crazy and lusting for more money and more money. Yeah, the game, like I was saying offline, some of the rules that some people complain about that the officials call now, they were calling then. I think we just didn't have a term for it. We didn't say freedom of movement back then, or, they called it hand checking, but they pretty much said, well, hand checking is fine. But you still couldn't displace players. And so, that's the thing now that they bring attention to is, freedom of movement. But it's always been a thing. So when people say, well, this person would have fouled out if they played now, I don't think that's true. I think the systems in place with Euroball helped these offensive players who needed speed back then to get away from defenders that they would have to see the whole entire game. Because now it's move the ball side to side until we can get our shooter open for a three, versus let's dump it inside, and as soon as someone drops down to help, that's going to get us
out. Yeah.
Yeah. So someone posted online the other day, what was more impressive, Westbrook's triple-double season or Oscar Robertson's triple-double season? And I'm thinking, that's a no-brainer, because Oscar Robertson had to dump it down in the post first before he could get it back. So for me, Oscar Robertson's triple-double is harder to get. And
it's just
then
rules are different too. Yeah.
And you mix in the fact they 3-point, though one thing that they did have was they didn't take the ball out. They shot free throws for each foul. There was no ball out of bounds whistles. So, but that also increased the rebounds. So then you had people like Wilt getting 40 rebounds in one game. Well, somebody missed 13 foul shots, and so he got that 13 plus the 13 he normally gets, plus some other kind of way he got a few more.
They gave Wilt the team rebounds, you saying?
Huh?
You saying they gave Wilt the 16 rebounds per game?
Well, some of those foul shots definitely added to what they get. I don't know if you guys, and I don't know if you guys remember in the 70s and early 80s, they had that free throw rule where you had 3 to make 2. You remember that?
Yep, I was about to say that.
Trey and I just heard about that. We don't know about that. Just be clear. Be clear.
So you surely didn't hear about Wilt jumping from the foul line for free throws, right?
Right.
Definitely didn't hear that.
And
so
have people on the sideline telling you, "Hey, you need 3 more assists." So you
right. Exactly.
You got going
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's all I've been doing is kind of like looking at older games and the way officials officiated the games then versus now. I do think that there would have definitely been some different outcomes in some of these games had they had 3 officials on the floor instead of 2, because they just went to 3 officials for basketball games really kind of recently.
I got to go back and watch that, Rod, like you, just because I was never one to say, oh, the refs did this, the refs did that. I just really didn't pay attention to officials for the most part. But after having become an official, I see things a lot differently. And so I would like to go back and watch some of those games and see what's what. However, one thing I will tell you, on the cusp, like a few years, I guess it was 6 years before I became an official. I do want to go back and watch Miami, Ohio State.
Football.
The championship game. Because I'll just say I have my suspicions about certain things. So I need to go back, watch that game. I also need to look up where a certain side judge or field judge went to school. There's certain things that were rumored to have occurred that now that I am a college official, it seems unlikely that that is the right information, just because all of the officials that I've met have so much integrity. So I need to go back and look at that game with different eyes, with officiating eyes, and see if I still feel the Miami Hurricanes were robbed. I have to go back and watch that. I don't have to go back and watch UNLV Duke. I don't believe that had anything to do with the officials. I believe what I believe, but I'll watch it. If we all agree to go back and watch it, then I'll go back and watch it. Yeah.
I think
Okay.
they threw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you been doing, Trey?
So
Sports wise.
Yesterday I sat on replay, and I kind of enjoy the games on replay because they speed through the timeout. You can watch a whole NBA game in an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Since I've been trying to tire my little one out, one of my little guys, so he's learning basketball. If you guys have Instagram, follow him. Colin the Great. He's 4 years old, shooting on 10-foot courts, he can dribble, crossover, everything. So he has skills, but I'm trying to get him to understand the game.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll sit and he'll watch the games with me. And I don't know if you guys know, like in Little League, like Pee-wees and stuff, you can't play defense until they come inside the three-point line.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm teaching him when we go in the backyard, I'll make a three-point line. And I'll say, when I come inside here, I don't care what happens. Wherever the ball is, you get there. You take the ball wherever it is, follow it around, and go the other way. Because what he'll do is he'll take it and then shoot it at the basket that he's at, because that's the closest one to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, just been enjoying that time, man. Teaching him the game and, spending that time and just watching different things. And I watched the Tyson Fury fight for the third time to see if Deontay Wilder had a shot at all in winning that fight, and he didn't.
He didn't. Okay.
And if they had a part 3, the same thing would happen again. Because I went to the first one. I'm a Deontay Wilder fan. He lost that fight. He got the knockdowns at the end, and I can't believe Fury got up, because I don't know another man alive that would have got up from that.
Okay.
But when Fury got up from that, at that point, he'll never beat Fury again, because that was his best shot.
All right, so I'm glad you brought that up. So what about if you go on YouTube and they show a close view of his gloves as they're floppy, so his fists look like that they're balled up in the wrists, and when he's hitting Deontay on the side of his head and his ear, you can see how that was stunning him. I've interviewed Wilder, and he is so much of a technician. He's learned the game so quickly based on the inspiration of his daughter. I know that him and his manager are in front of the commission many times talking about Fury's gloves. It was a weird thing to me how it looked like he was never in the fight. Now, we know about contrasting styles in boxing, how even a lesser talented guy can beat a super talented guy based on his style, right? And I'm not taking that away from Fury at all, because his legacy is in stone now. But there's something about those gloves, man. They were just too floppy. I would ask you guys just to go on YouTube and watch these clips where you can see like his gloves. Like it's just a weird thing in boxing, because I've never boxed. My daughter was tried her hand at boxing. But I know how the gloves are taped. They're very tight. It does not appear that Fury's gloves were as tight on him as I've historically seen in the sport.
Think it was something in him, maybe?
No, I don't think anything went in him. I just think that his fists are closer to where the thumb is. Like his bald
So they
fist
weren't
is
in the
balled
padding.
up.
They weren't. You're saying they weren't in the padding. They were more so
Right,
where it's strung up.
exactly. Right,
So the
because they,
fist was here.
yes,
If this is a glove, the fist
right,
was here as opposed to being here in the
yes,
glove.
yes,
And then if you
yes.
get hit with the side, that's a fist as opposed to it being.
It's a knuckle. It's a
Yeah,
knuckle.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so on
and
this side, yeah, it's a knuckle.
yeah. So, I mean, obviously, Deontay was on a track to be, the Floyd, the Tyson, all of these cats that you think that maybe finish his career undefeated. And in these days where, boxing money just isn't there, the sport had to be thrown on its face, I think, by having Deontay lose. This to me isn't a conspiracy theory. The gloves, there was something funny about the gloves. And I don't know what it was, and I don't know if legally it gave him an advantage, but it just appears that it did, because it just seemed like, and I've talked to this dude so many times. He's given me some of my best interviews because he's so provocative and charismatic, that he almost had the sport on his back during interview. And I really appreciate his boxing. We grew up in a heavyweight era,
Right.
so to
Yeah.
see the heavyweights come back. I mean, Deontay Wilder in another life would be a basketball. He would be a small forward, right? A shooting guard now, maybe a shooting guard, But to see his ascension in the sport, and to see him be derailed by a style over, like, I think I truly feel that Tyson Fury is overrated
Mm-hmm.
based on these two victories, because as Trey said, he Deontay lost that first fight. He didn't win it. It was he was lucky to get the draw. But if you go back and watch that fight, it was the same thing with the gloves. I don't know.
Wow, I didn't see either fight. I gotta go back and
Okay,
something to do.
just
I was gonna
watch
watch
the
both.
gloves. You'll
Yeah.
see a different movement with the gloves, and you won't know what it is until you actually focus on it. I didn't focus on it until the aftermath.
Yeah, because I done watched it 3 times and I didn't catch it, so I'm gonna go back and watch it.
Yeah, I mean, they'll even show a close up where you can see his knuckles through the laces. The laces on the front.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out.
It's just a weird thing, and I'm not. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to say that Fury truly circumvented the rules, but I understand if he did, because Deontay was knocking cats out from the other side of the ring. You know what I mean? That if he caught you, it was over, and that was a true good thing to see about the sport again. That knockout, because we've gone through an era of lightweights and featherweights and middleweights, and where you didn't really see like the knockout, and where guys would get up. Remember back in the 70s where somebody would get hit with the hardest punch ever, and from Ernie Shavers, and they would get up, and then they would knock Ernie Shavers down. Then Ernie Shavers would return it. I love that about boxing. Like Rod was saying. I mean, we grew up in a great era of sports, but I just ask you all to watch those fights again and focus on the movement of the gloves and just sit back and you can make your own decision about what you see. You know,
I saw
and,
the first fight. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
and here's the thing. So if this is the case, that there is something indifferent about these fights, because now the potential is 4 fights, not 3, right? Because say Deontay wins this next fight, there has to be a 4th one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
A win, a loss, and a draw.
Yeah.
The 4th one, yeah.
Yeah, there has to be a 4th one. So the money is obviously they're not getting nothing from streaming services because everybody's watching it illegally. But the gate receipts was all time high.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I like to analyze the finer points of sports because it's my livelihood, and it's also again because I was that athlete. So with that athlete mind, you're watching. I've interviewed boxers, many boxers. One of the best interviews I've ever interviewed was a guy named Juan West. He was the father of. She was from LA too. What's her name? Kai West.
Hold on one second.
Huh? Yeah, but he gave me just a tremendous interview. But I'm just speaking as a father. It was just a tremendous interview to hear a father talk about his daughter in boxing. And she was talking about basically how she didn't get the money she thought that women see that Floyd Mayweather was getting. She never was able to do that. She had to quit boxing and work a regular job. But just watch those fights for me. Watch those fights and see if you see anything different about the glove movement. After the punch, it's almost like a Daffy Duck, a Bugs Bunny punch. You know what I mean? It's weird. It's just weird, y'all. It's just weird. That's all. I would just like to see if you determine that there is something weird about the floppiness of the gloves and the punch to the ears. Obviously, he had cauliflower ear, right? So if that was the case, then I would like to see a fight where that anomaly wasn't present, and to see mano y mano go at it. And what I'm getting at is this is, to me, is what's going to lead to the 4th fight. Because if it's determined that there was something weird about this last fight, then it's going to be something that's going to be spoken about in the lead up to this next fight. Right. And it's going to be something that the referee is going to be aware of before the fight happens. So that's what's going to lead to Deontay winning again. Winning for the first time, truly. And then we'll get the 4th fight. I'm sorry.
I didn't know. Go ahead, AC.
No, I just said, that's what's up. I'll let you know. What's up, the Greats?
Yeah, I saw the first fight. I didn't see the second fight, but I really wasn't interested in the second fight. When I saw the first fight, I'm like, I already know the outcome. And it was more based on the fact of, from the very first round, as soon as I saw Wilder, and I grew up fighting a lot. My buddy Derek lives down the street from me. He boxed, and he made us all fight. Every weekend we had little tournaments in the backyard. He had gloves, he had heavy bags, he had speed bags right at his home. He still has them. He's a doctor now, coincidentally, but he made us fight, and the guy who trained him was even better. Definitely could have been a pro and possibly a champ. He was that good. His name was Glenn Wells. So you know, growing up, I learned where to position my foot, you know, not to, I mean, he always told us, hey, if you throw a punch and you don't bring your hand straight back to your chin, I'm going to tag you. And he was older than us, you know, as kids.
Nobody's
So
older
he
than you.
kept us on our guard. Like, don't drop your hand. And so I'm watching Wilder, and I'm like, he brings his
That's
hand
true.
back. He never protects himself.
Nope.
He stands with no balance, with no purpose. He leans on the wrong leg. He's got his foot positioned on the wrong side of the opponent's foot. He's gonna get killed. And and when you combine that with the fact that you really don't have boxing skills, like he doesn't move his head around, he stands flat-footed. That's too many negatives to say he's gonna survive. So when I saw that, I'm like, dude, you can't just go in a fight thinking, oh, if I can land my right hand,
all he wants to do is
I'm
land
gonna win
the
the
right hand.
right. And I'm like, you may never get a chance to land that right hand. You want to land it, and they know you want to land it. So if he listens to his corner and not give you that opportunity because you're not doing anything to set it up, you don't work behind the jab like what we grew up used to, where we saw people, and somebody had this discussion on Facebook, like, you know, could he have even beaten any guys that weren't named Mike Tyson? And I'm like, people look at Buster Douglas like he was some kind of slob, but Buster had skill. Buster was just lazy, and he was always overweight and didn't take it seriously. But, you know, when you want that big payday and you set up for, I mean, that's just like if they told you, hey, Mizzo, we're going to give you $1 million to see if you can come back and play baseball, and you can try out 3 months from now. A shot at $1 million, even if you don't come back as far as you want to, you're going to make sure you go run some laps. You're going to make sure that you ain't partying the night before. You're going to do a lot of things different to at least give yourself an opportunity.
Of course.
He skill-wise is not there. And I would say that he wouldn't have beaten any of those B-list fighters that we were used to from before who actually had skill, like a Michael Dokes or a Mitch Green, or you from Philly, you guys had a stable of fighters from every level. So
I think that when
based on what's out there, he always has a shot, because
so
I thought Anthony Joshua would be okay because he has the skill, but he has the chin of Glass Joe. I mean, you know, he barely touch him and he just falls out and doesn't get up. So
Rodney, here's one thing I think is important when you do the look back, and then we're gonna get back to Trey because we're about to close out. When you do the look back, I think it has to be noted that this is a different time, and you just said that this is a different time, a different era. The heavyweight is almost forgotten about right now. So maybe if this guy is in that era, he's trained differently. So I don't want to get wrapped up in like the way that he is now. He couldn't have competed, but we don't know if this person in that era couldn't have competed because there's a different focus on heavyweights, and maybe he gets with Angelo Dundee. Like we don't know. We don't know who he gets with and who brings him along, and so maybe he does become one of the greats back then. With
but he would have had to, because Larry Holmes would have jabbed him to death.
Right. But I mean, when it comes to boxing, do they really get trained differently? I mean, that's true for other sports, but when it comes to individual sports like boxing or golf or tennis,
conditioning is part of training, right? So
conditioning is different.
And establishing a work ethic. And you say that he's not a natural. I haven't seen him, but you say that he's not a natural boxer. So if someone sees, okay, you have gifts, and I want to pull the boxer out of you, that's different in 1990, in my opinion. That's different in 1990 than it is in 2020 for a heavyweight. That's all I'm saying. But I haven't seen Wilder.
No, I got.
It's a lot of
on his behalf.
It's a lot of trainers Unless your name is Freddie Roach, are you one of the Mayweathers that can bring the best out of your fighter?
Right.
It's a lot of people that are there,
Right.
and their fighter is telling them what to do. And
Right.
they're truly listening to their fighter. Like Freddie Roach, he don't care. He's going to tell you and say, well, you know what? I can't train you then if you're not going to listen to me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So a lot of it goes into that because Deontay Wilder's last fight, I forgot the Cuban guy that he fought 2 times.
Yeah.
The big guy.
The
Yeah,
big
I know
guy.
what you're talking about.
The last fight that they had, Deontay Wilder caught him slipping, knocked him out, but was
Yeah.
on every scorecard.
Yeah.
He was losing on every scorecard
Yeah.
and was going to lose that fight, I think, if he didn't knock him out.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yep.
So he's been on his way out. And the first time he fought the Cuban dude, the guy just couldn't finish him. It was a great fight, but he was beating him to death.
So you're saying if I go back and watch Deontay Wilder's catalog, I'm not going to be impressed at all? I'm going to wonder how.
No, you're really not. You're really not.
2-1-1.
His last 4 fights.
2-1-1.
Impressed.
Yeah.
I mean, his
That's
knockout
why I
power
didn't
is
want to watch the
ridiculous.
second one. I left there frustrated. Like, you can't possibly get on television saying you one of the greatest of all times and this and that, and you're that bad. I was mad.
Oh, you know what? I just realized after the first fight, that's when Rodney called me and wanted to talk about Deontay Wilder. And I said I was going to go back and watch it, and I just never did. I remember that now. So, Trey, outside of Wilder Fury 2, what have you been doing sports-wise?
Watching the Lakers and working out with Colin.
All right.
Taking this time to really game, find my basketball through that. And spend the family time.
Yep. So for me, I have actually been on my Peloton. This is not sports related, but since you said working out, I've been on my Peloton 11 days in a row. I've worked out 14 days in a row.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've decided to get my miles in. I've been running up and down my stairs, getting 5 miles in. It's nuts on a daily basis. But from a sports perspective, you guys know that I'm a softball fan. So I've been I have this app called Flow Softball that my cousin and I paid for. It was nuts, $150 for the year, maybe even $175. And then the season shut down, so it was like, yo, that sucked. But a lot of good replay. So I've been watching. I already saw UCLA pummel everybody, but I've been watching other teams like Florida, Auburn, Florida, Oklahoma. I've been watching those games, so that's fun to watch. But the big thing that I've been doing is watching UFC. I've been watching UFC, and when I tell you that I watched John Bones Jones versus Gustafsson from 2013,
wow,
that fight is going into the Hall of Fame this year.
It is.
It's going into the Hall of Fame as one of the greatest fights of all time. A 5-round rock'em sock'em robot, and Gustafsson is punching, and John loves to kick. Boy, am I a UFC fan now. And I always knew about John Bones Jones, and I knew about Daniel Cormier, but I must have watched like the last 10 UFC, like their events. So from like 237 to 239 to 248, I just watched. So like 10 of those. And boy, I love watching it, and I'm learning more and more about it. And most of it was on demand on ESPN Plus. But for this particular Hall of Fame fight, I had to go to YouTube to get it. No, Facebook. I went to Facebook to get it because it wasn't on ESPN Plus. But I love watching that stuff now, and that's been filling.
Just got in trouble?
Yeah, he did, man. Goodness gracious.
I feel for the dude, man. Like sometimes.
Oh, what happened? I don't even know.
But
driving under drugs.
Yeah. Jones been struggling with cocaine addiction badly.
Yeah. His brother has been on him. But that's what it speaks to, and it's the reason why I was watching the Allen Iverson Hall of Fame speech. Some dudes, what makes them the best is also what
holds them from reaching their full potential.
Right.
And it's who they are. Ryan Artest is who he is. Marshawn Lynch is who he is.
Yes.
And that's not to speak coming in a pejorative way, but some of those dudes are who they are. And John Bones Jones seems to be that type of cat in the sense that Mike Tyson was who he was.
Lawrence Phillips.
Yeah, Lawrence Phillips. Yeah, all them dudes. A lot of dudes.
However, if you get access to the type of money that they have, and you see how people get in trouble all the time when you're in that limelight and you got the cameras on you and people are watching you, it's up to you to
true.
either find a friend that will tell you the truth, that's with you all the time, or you hire a no person that tell you, no, you ain't doing that. No, that's not good for you. But when your whole entourage is feeding off of that, they're gonna and let you go out there and be there for you until you can't give them anymore, and then watch how they take off.
Yeah.
Let's close.
Watch that Eddie Curry story.
Okay.
Yeah, Eddie Curry.
Watch that Eddie Curry story.
Speaking
Crazy.
of the Eddie Curry era, who do you remember the name Corleone Young? I know Mike does. Do the two of you remember Corleone Young?
Yeah,
Boy, that
from
dude,
prep school.
It just didn't work out. And he didn't even get the shot. But he was supposed to be number one. Let's close
I'll tell
it
you
down.
a story about that.
Yeah, let's close it down here. We're gonna pick it up next week. Thank you all. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, viewers. Really quickly, last on episode 1, we picked NBA champions. Assuming we have a baseball season, let's go around the horn and give Major League Baseball champions. We already know Rodney's got the Nationals. Trey, Dodgers, Yankees for Mizzo. Rodney, Nationals.
Dodgers. I'm a Dodgers fan. I'm hoping for the best.
Hey, I appreciate y'all.
That is, it ends up, right? Are you Dodger for life?
Oh no, I'm Dodger for life. Because remember, I told you.
Oh yeah, you did say that.
To LA, I was leaving Boston and coming to LA, even if he went to the Padres. So he's my favorite player, but the Dodgers are my squad.
Dodgers for life.
Yeah, Dodgers for life. And by the way, I haven't had that many favorites throughout my lifetime, but 2 of them are very similar to Mizzo's point, and that's Ricky and Mookie. Just, generational talents. And obviously, Ricky had the Hall of Fame career. Mookie has the potential to be just a top 10 player of all time. It's just, it's one of those things. But hey, I love y'all. Let's do it again next week. Peace.
Absolutely.
Peace.
Yes, sir. Be safe, fellas.
Y'all too.
Be safe.